know how laws actually get updated? Or even better, who decides when a law is no longer working for today's Jamaica? Well, it turns out that there is an entire department dedicated just to that, and it's called the Legal Reform Department. Now, they're the ones that are behind the scenes, doing the research, spotting the gaps, and helping to shape the laws that impact all of us. I'm your host, Nastasia McFarlane, and in today's episode of Lawfully Explained, our guest, Miss Nicole Wright, Senior Assistant Director of the Legal Reform Department, will be giving us insight into the role of the LRD and why their work is so important to keeping our legal system modern and effective. Welcome to our series, Lawfully Explained.
Thank you, Nastasia. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So, let's get into it. LRD. Tell us, what is the role, the function, the responsibility of the department?
Okay, so the LRD, which is the Legal Reform Department, was established in 1973. It was a unit within the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Hold on. Ministry of Home Affairs?
Right, so we're talking about 1972, 73 here. We're in 2025.
Yes.
So at some point along the way, Home Affairs would have turned into a Ministry of National Security, which would have then been paired with the Ministry of Justice.
Okay.
And so at a point, the Legal Reform Department became one of the 4 departments that fell under the Ministry of Justice. So that would include the Attorney General's Chambers, the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. So in 2022, something amazing and special happened.
Yes.
It was the creation of a new ministry, the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs.
Ta-da!
And Cabinet saw fit to move both the Legal Reform Department and the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel as departments and place them in the Ministry of Legal. Right. So we're on that establishment now. So we review government policies and we also review laws to ensure that they are current and up to date.
Okay, good. So walk us through what the process is like when your team researches legal reform issues. What goes into that process?
Okay, so it's two-pronged. The Legal Reform Department can either initiate research or we respond to requests from stakeholders. Stakeholders being ministries, departments, and agencies in the government of Jamaica. So in terms of initiating, we may decide upon looking at a particular law that it is dated, it is old, just in terms of a date. And that based on where we are at, it perhaps would require some review. So we look at the law, we would look at the historical background to that law, why that law was created. We then do research into jurisdictions that are in the Commonwealth and outside of the Commonwealth that may have similar legislation and see what changes they may have done to their law. And then we come up with a policy paper in relation to any reform that would be needed to bring that law up to date. In terms of our response, ministries, departments, and agencies have several pieces of legislation under their portfolio. And depending on the atmosphere in the country, depending on issues that may come up, problems that they may have encountered, they will reach out to the Legal Reform Department, either the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs or us directly, with an issue to say, this is what is happening with this law. Is there anything that can be done?
Yeah.
And so we will take that letter. They may have started with a policy in relation to the problem they have identified. We then assess the information. We read the law itself. We do our research, historical, current. We look at newspaper articles. In terms of looking at the historical background, I think it's important for people to know that we go as far as accessing the Parliament's Hansards, which is the typewritten debates that take
Happen
place
in the Parliament, yeah.
Right, so that we have an understanding as to where this law came from, why it was enacted, why certain provisions are there. After doing all of that analysis, we will sit down and decide. We have certain questions we ask. It's a work formula. The first is, what is the legal issue and what is the law in relation to that legal issue?
One.
Secondly, We also then ask what is the problem, if any, with the law in relation to that issue.
True.
And lastly, if we find that there is a problem, then we come up with a solution.
Okay, so you guys are solution driven.
Yes, we are.
All right. So as it relates to the parliament, right? I know that the LRD supports lawmaking within the parliament, and this comes in respect of helping with legislative policy development as it relates to the legislative process, right? So give us a little bit more insight, because we did have insight from the OPC on how they make sure that their role is critical in the process. How is LRD's role critical?
Okay, so the Legal Reform Department is a part of the committee, the legislation committee of Cabinet. As such, Cabinet has guidelines which says that once a ministry, department, or agency is making any amendments to their law that involves law reform and legal reform related, we should be a part of the process. In terms of Parliament directly, we attend Parliament. So we attend both houses of Parliament, the House of Representatives and the Senate. We also attend joint select committee meetings and special select committee meetings of Parliament. In relation to joint select committee meetings, we are there to give our technical, legal, and policy advice to them. Normally, we are asked questions of committee members or the chairman, but sometimes during the discussions, we see where they may be going in a particular direction that they perhaps shouldn't be, or we think they should perhaps steer their conversations in another direction. So what we tend to do is we ask to intervene. We go through the committee chair and ask if we may be permitted to speak, even though we've not been asked a question. And we kind of guide them in a way that will direct their thoughts more succinctly in the issues that they are discussing.
Okay.
In relation to the lower house and Senate, where they're also to give advice. Sometimes during Parliament sittings, not a lot of people know, the minister who is piloting a bill is on his or her feet, and questions come from the opposition. And those questions are answered by the technical team, which includes the Legal Reform Department. So we're there to give our assistance in that way.
Okay, good.
But I also want to point out that there is a lot of work that the Legal Reform Department does prior to Parliament. That's the end game. That is the wedding. Prior to the wedding, there is a lot that takes place. So at the Legal Reform Department, we vet policy documents from ministries. We give comments and advice as it relates to the cabinet submissions, as it relates to draft bills, as it relates to, as I said, policy papers. In addition, depending on the work we may initiate, we are vested with the task of preparing cabinet submissions, the policy, and drafting instructions, not the bill. And so that is the work that we do prior to Parliament, and then I'll explain what we do when we get to Parliament.
Okay. So you talk about the work that the LRD does for the government, right? With the ministries, the departments, and the agencies, the MDAs. But are there other, let's say, stakeholders that you guys serve? And if so, who are those people?
Okay, so primarily, as I've indicated, we work with the ministries, departments, and agencies of government. We work closely with the Attorney General's chambers, the Office of the Parliamentary Council, and the Law Revision Secretariat. In the work that we do, though, we have other stakeholders who we interact with. First being the judiciary. One may ask how.
But for those persons who don't know what the judiciary is, tell them, what is the judiciary?
So the judiciary includes judges at both the parish court level, the Supreme Court level, and the Court of Appeal in Jamaica. So judgments are handed down by judges, and sometimes, and it has happened on quite a few occasions, they will make recommendations as it relates to reforming law. We will pick up on that through whatever means. So we will find ourselves reading cases, hearing about it. So once we pick that up, that's the level on which we interact with the judiciary. So it's not so much direct contact, but it is through their judgments. And we will start the research process, and then we may prepare a policy paper. as it relates to the amendment that has been proposed and send that to the parent ministry who has charge of that particular piece of legislation. We also work with private attorneys at law.
Really?
Yes, we do.
I didn't know that.
Okay, I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Private attorneys at law have been known, depending on their passion, having worked, let's use, for example, someone who works in the family court. They recognize an issue as it relates to the law, a problem, an anomaly. They take pen to paper or the hands to keyboard and shoots an email directly to our director at Legal Reform or to the minister in charge of a particular piece of legislation, explaining what the issue is, because they would be the ones who are interacting more with this piece of legislation in action in the court. And so once they indicate what that problem is, that is sent to us. It's legal reform. So we do the required research. And one perfect example of that is a recent amendment that took place to the Maintenance Act, where it allowed for adult children who are no longer minors to be able to apply for maintenance in spite of the fact that they were not under an order prior to becoming an adult. That actually emanated from a most eminent attorney at law in the profession. So that's an example. And then lastly, we work with international organizations. We work closely with the Commonwealth Association of Law Reformers. We attend conferences. We also do a lot of presentations, or we try to, depending on our budget. And one such organization we work closely with is the International Society for the Reform of Criminal Law, where we go and we present and we network. And in presenting and networking, going there and hearing what is happening among Commonwealth countries, we then can inform our own ideas in terms of research and any reforms that we think could benefit our country.
So, Ms. Wright, you talk about researching as a big process within the LRD. Now, we know that the LRD is made up of lawyers. Is there a categorization of researchers different from reformers, and how you guys work together to get this process done? Give us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so in the legal reform department, we are all attorneys at law in terms of the 10 attorneys that work there. We have our administrative support, but we have 10 attorneys at law that have been called to the Jamaican bar. And it's interesting you ask that question, because every single attorney at law that passes through the hallowed halls of the Norman Manley Law School have the skills to research. It's a part of the curriculum. However, to do the work of a law reformer who is I would say, an advanced researcher, it's not every run-of-the-mill person who can do it. It requires a lot of dedication. It is something you need to be passionate about. It requires, on a given night, maybe for you to give up sleep because you have a deadline or you don't have a deadline. It requires somebody who enjoys reading. It requires not just a passion for reforming and research, but a passion for the development and betterment of Jamaica. Not just legally either, but just generally.
Well, I think this is why we do this series here, for us to highlight the departments, highlight some of the individuals who work in these areas, to show that there are people who are doing the work in the background. It's not just happening airy-fairy, right? And, you say it's not glamorous and it's a thankless job, but we're giving you your thanks now. We're giving you your flowers here. But we're also making sure that people have an appreciation of what it is that the LRD does and how it is that things are done, in the background, so that we can be benefiting from them, on the other side of things. Now, we want to understand, you talk about the appreciation of LRD and how it is that we reform our laws in Jamaica. For the persons watching, tell us why you think it's important for them to understand and have this appreciation of what the LRD does.
The Legal Reform Department is a vital department to the administration of justice in Jamaica. Laws order society. And so we are tasked with the heavy burden of ensuring that laws are sound and that good laws are made. That is done through the meticulous work of every single attorney at law in our department. There was a former director who said that our department is tasked with holding back the darkness. And it is only in spending the 10 years that I have at the Legal Reform Department
A whole decade.
understand what that means. How will a society function without proper laws?
Chaos.
Chaos. So therefore, because we are so intricately involved in the legal reform process, in lawmaking, what would the government do without the Legal Reform Department? What would the people of Jamaica do without us? I don't think Jamaica would be better if we did not exist. At the end of the day, Nastasio, what I want to really impart is that the main objective of the Legal Reform Department in carrying out our mandate, in carrying out the legal policy advice that we give, is for it to be non-partisan, for our research to be thorough, for it to be evidence-based, for it to be historical and socially relevant, and for it to be globally aware.
So here at Lawfully Explained, while we talk about the serious matters, right, we like to have a little bit of fun on the series, right? Our viewers know what I'm talking about. So today we're going to be playing a game called Win or Bin. Win is a thumbs up, means it's something that we're encouraging and we're promoting, and something that is actually factual.
Right.
And then bin is a thumbs down, something that we're not doing at all. We're not promoting this behavior or this ideology at all, right? So first one, the LRD drafts laws without consulting other ministries, departments, and agencies.
That is definitely a bin.
Bin, tell us why it's a bin.
Okay, we are not drafters. We are trained attorneys at law, but we never went further to do our specialization in drafting. That is done by the Office of the Parliamentary Council.
All right, secondly, the LRD identifies outdated laws and recommends updates. Win or bin?
Win.
Yes, ma'am.
That is primarily what we do. As I said, we initiate it where we do our own independent research, or we respond to requests from ministries, departments, and agencies for assistance in, looking at a particular law to see if there is a problem or an identified problem and what solution there is. And we do make recommendations, and they are just recommendations.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, next one. The LRD enforces laws after they are passed. Win or bin? Bin. Tell us why.
I am no police officer. No, we don't enforce laws. We reform. After the bill is passed, then the assent is done by the GG, and that is in our legal landscape for whichever agency, ministry, department to do all the enforcing they want.
So we really hope that our viewers would have answered correctly in the comment section to let us know. Let us know if you got the correct answers, whether it was a win or it was a win. But thank you so much for playing, Nicole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. I'm pretty sure everybody is very versed on the Legal Reform Department now, right?
I'm hoping we are.
But we do appreciate you being here, giving us some insight into what the LRD does. And, while it is something that is done behind the scenes, we can see the work that the department is doing. And, don't talk about it being thankless. We thank you for your service. And for all the reformers out there, we thank you for your service. But again, once again, thank you for being here on Lawfully Explained.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap of today's episode of Lawfully Explained. A big thanks to Ms. Nicole Wright, Senior Assistant Director of the Legal Reform Department, for giving us such a clear and thoughtful look into the work of the LRD. It's not every day we get to hear about the behind-the-scenes efforts that go into shaping the laws that guide our society. But we are grateful for the information. Now, if you've learned something new about legal reform, please tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to break down the laws in simple ways. I'm your host, Nastasia McFarlane, and as usual, stay informed, stay engaged, so that it can be lawfully explained. See you next time.